Hello, welcome back to the Trekway. I'm Trev, that's Gray. We're continuing on with our Star Trek Prodigy reviews at the moment, breaking it down into chunks. We couldn't really do it justice to do it all in one go, nor would we do one
Yeah.
episode each week because we'd be here for a very long time. Um, but yeah, we're going to be doing episodes 11 and 12 in this review hour or so. But before we kick off, of course, though, please come along to our Discord if you want to talk all things Star Trek. We can be found at discord.gg for backslash Extreme Gaming Podcast, or just search for us on Google, because you can come in there, chat Star Trek with us, talk to us about the Trek Way. It's a gaming podcast as well. That's how it originated, actually, and then it evolved, grew arms and legs. And also Gray's got a podcast that he does each month as well, about entertainment, which usually covers a decent amount of sci-fi and Marvel DC stuff anyway. So if you like Star Trek, you're probably going to like that as well. And that can all be found at our Extreme Gaming Podcast Discord. It's got a lot of people in it. Also, the audio podcasting platforms, if you don't want to watch and you just want to listen, you'll find us by looking for Gray's Green Room on audio podcasting platforms and the Trekway as well. And if you come along to Discord, say how you found us. Just say hello. Say it was from podcast. Say it was from YouTube, whatever. And let us know. Right, we will kick off, Mr. Gray, because I really enjoyed this two-parter. You did as well. We've been very close in our scores since we started, and of course we won't allude to that till then, but you're the one that said to me, you gave me a little teaser ahead of time, spoiler free review, and you're like, this is excellent, by the way. And this is how Star Trek should be in my eyes. I don't know what you think
Yeah.
without giving the game away straight away.
No, definitely. I mean, I think even the whole Prodigy season up to the reviews we're doing now has been stellar. And I really think that if they don't do a third season, it'll be awful. I'll be really disappointed. Because it's just really good. Despite little things here and there, and every show has little things, whatever. It's really good. From top to bottom, the acting, the animation, the writing, everything is like really good. So
Yeah,
I would think, at least we don't really know yet because Netflix is keeping things kind of close to the vest. But from what I understand, I think it's doing well. So I'm keeping fingers crossed that Netflix will pick up on the third season, because I would hate to have it like sent back out there for somebody else to take.
yeah,
But I
but
don't care, to be honest with you. As long as it gets a third season, I don't care where it lands.
if they want a third season but Paramount don't want to green light it, then it doesn't really matter what Netflix want. That's that
No,
angle.
but usually it comes down to money, and Netflix has money. So if they really want it, they're gonna put some money into it, and Paramount will just go fine because they'll take the money.
Yeah,
Licensing is people don't understand sometimes. It's very lucrative because you're just sitting there going like, all right, I'm signing off. You can do virtually anything you want, with the exception of maybe a couple little things, and go ahead. It's gonna cost you this much. Thank you very much. And they just go off and do whatever they want,
yeah.
and they pay the producers, they pay everything, they pay the licensing fee. Paramount just sits back and makes the money. What a deal!
I know it works out for all parties involved.
Yeah.
Apologies if you see any stuttering of this video, guys. Discord has been its usual pants self. Gray to
Or
me
pants
is
as
very
usual.
stuttery, but he's got great broadband, and I probably look stuttery to him. So apologies, guys. If you just shut your eyes and pretend we're not here and listen, I guess that probably works. Right, we'll kick off because I really enjoyed this. Like I say, it very much reminded me of Castaway, but Star Trek still, which I
Yeah.
love. I haven't really seen that before in Star Trek. Well, I have, but not to this degree. Um,
Yeah.
we we have a very cool opening to this episode, which I know somewhere else later on, Gray, but I'll say it just now. The ending we got of the last episode did not match up with the start of this episode, which I found a bit confusing. Not really a
Mm.
problem. It's more of a observation than anything else. But
Yeah.
we do get to see what Chakotay's been up to recently. The little kind of montage for the first few minutes of the episode of what he's been doing this whole time. He's We saw him last episode at the end, sitting on the hull of Protostar, like perfectly balanced and wedged on this rock. I'm just thinking, if he'd had too much for dinner one evening and fell asleep on the wrong side of the ship, it might end up somewhere at the bottom of the planet because it looked so perfectly perched on this cliff edge.
And it's been sitting there for 10 years, so.
Yeah, exactly. It hasn't budged. As we see later on, they do try and budge it. He's been doing a bunch of things. He's basically just been surviving a bit like Tom Hanks in Castaway. The clouds in front of him they're not typical clouds. It's more of a sea of clouds, so they must be really, really dense. And we'll get into this conversation in a bit. I think the physics is a little bit messed up for me because I know Jupiter's a thing, but if they were that dense, the clouds wouldn't be as high up as they are. So, whatever. I don't pretend to be an expert in that side of things, but he's been basically capturing his dinner from, there's fish in these clouds, this cloud water, whatever you want to call it. It's batshit crazy. It's more Star Wars-esque than Star Trek-esque. And he's not been eating them. He's been capturing them and taking the fish eggs and eating them, which I thought was pretty cool.
It was funny because he was like scraping them off of it, almost like scales, but whatever, fish eggs. But he doesn't eat the fish though, so I assume I guess the fish is not good, but the eggs are, apparently.
He said they didn't taste very nice later on, actually, to the kids. He's like, it's an acquired taste, but things you got to do to survive, because the ship's low in power and they can't be replicating stuff, so.
Yeah, at least I guess every once in a while he replicates a really good cheeseburger.
A Christmas dinner once a year, the turkey and the trimmings and stuff,
Keep the power down. Only make one of those fancy meals every season.
That's it. Treat yourself, man. And then stay away from the edges of the ship in case you send it off balance.
Yeah, that would be long way down.
It's like I say, you see a lot of stuff. You see he's making little figures. He's very talented at what he does. He's making figures. At first I wasn't sure who they were, but it's basically the Protostar crew. I thought I saw 7 of 9 in there. I thought he was doing the Voyager crew, which would have been cool, but as we find out later on, the obvious sign was Adric. He's first officer, who you see there as well, but he's not around, Gray, as we'll discover later what's happened, which is a bit of a shame. You're the same as me. You really love this opening as well. Seeing what Chakotay has been up to, managing to fit it in just a few minutes, and the quality of the animation is always on point, isn't it?
Yep, sure is. And I thought everything was like you said, kind of like Castaway, I guess. But we see what he's gotten through. We see that what he's been enduring. The music was perfect. It matched the mood and everything. And of course, the animation was great. I mean, it's just I sound like a broken record, but I can't say enough about the animation because it's just damn
gorgeous.
Good.
It really is gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially like when you get into space and you see some of the ships. I mean, the ships they look almost as good as the regular Trek and stuff. I mean, they look real good.
It's because it's not typical cartoony graphics like Lower Decks. It is closer to. See, right, this whole thing. Obviously, when you're filming normal Star Trek, the majority of it is real life stuff, real people, a lot of kind of scenery and stuff that they've made or whatever thrown into the background. So it's all mostly actual practical stuff. And then they'll have their big massive wall that they've got behind them now for background scenes, and then they put the CGI shots in later of like ships and whatnot. But when you look at Prodigy, Gray, it's all like that. So it's all like the little snippets we get of CGI of ships in, like, say, Strange New Worlds, right? But all the way through the episode, 22 minutes long or whatever. And that's maybe why it's only that length of time, because that's all they can afford to do. And that's why the ships look very close, in my eyes, to the special effects in the main shows, the live action shows, because the quality is that good. I agree, man. It's stunning. I don't even think of it as animation. I think of it more of CGI than animation. It's that good.
Come a long way since Star Trek the Animated Series in the 70s.
Oh God, that was janky ass. But I get it. It was limitations of what they had back then. I'm not going to slag them for it. But you see Lower Decks. Lower Decks is what TOS, the animated show, should have looked like. But obviously, they didn't have the computers and stuff back then. Everything was hand-drawn and everything was done manually. So, but yeah, the start was absolutely great. All he was missing was a Wilson. Don't you agree?
Wilson?
Yeah, Castaway, man.
Oh, okay. I forgot. It's been a long time since I've seen the movie.
Brilliant movie. I adore that. Listen, it's there's a show in the UK, or probably one in America as well, called what's it? I've forgotten the bloody name. Is it Survival? Or it's basically a bunch of people from the UK are regular people are stuck in an island for a month to see if they can survive.
Yeah. Over here they call it Survivor. That's
Oh
probably
yeah,
the same
Survivor
one.
here as well. Yeah, it was Bear Grylls. You know that guy, the English guy. He kicked off a lot of these shows, and it's always been my dream to actually been put on that island because it's a really cheap way of losing weight. I think when you're starving all the bloody time. And this is
They
kind
even
of
made a version of that, which I haven't seen, but where they're actually all naked.
oh well,
They're
yeah.
on, and they have like the blur over. I'm sitting there going, okay.
Well, that's so natural. I mean, I get it. It's always fascinated me. So to see Chakotay, but he's a trained officer, so he knows how to survive. The cubs, the scouts, the girl guides, whatever you want to call it. That is par for the course. If you're a Starfleet officer, you should be able to. You're basically a Stanley knife of a human being. You should be able to do almost anything on your own. So it was good.
He luckily he had an advantage though. He didn't end up on an island with nothing. He had this ship.
Oh, he'd be
So,
dead by
at
then.
least
He'd be
he
dead
had-
by then, wouldn't he? But he doesn't use the ship a lot, mate. He only uses it when he really has to. He's outside a lot.
Sure, but you got to think, if anything comes after him or whatever, he's got a ship to pretty much protect him. He has a home. He can sleep inside the ship. I mean, so it's not. I'm not saying 10 years is an amazing thing for him. He went through a lot, but at least the ship was there, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
It was there, but it wasn't going anywhere, as we learn as
Right.
well. It's on running on emergency power. Hollow Janeway is there, but she's not on all the time. He only turns on power when he really needs it because he's wanting to make it last as long as he can. The solar collectors, which you don't hear about enough in Star Trek or with starships, that should be par for the course. They're obviously not going to be nowhere near as efficient as scooping up deuterium and things like that, but we see you get this with the rovers on Mars at the moment. Some of them last barely any time at all because of a big dust storm comes along and covers up their solar panels and they're screwed. But then some of them are still going now after years because they've had a bit of luck along the way and the solar panels have been kept clear. So that's how Protostar's been getting its power because they've been there 10 years and it's no other way of generating power at all. The Protos drive is gone. There's barely any. They're running on battery backup, and let's say the solar power is going down, or the efficiency of the solar collectors will go down by the day. I didn't know you could get ion storms within a planet, Gray. I pretty much thought that was a space thing in Star Trek. But nitpick, it's not a problem. Did you wonder that as well? Or?
Yeah, but I guess I'm assuming that since the majority of the planet seems to be these vapor clouds and stuff, that the ion storm makes sense because it happens out on that vapor ocean, and it barely crosses the land because there isn't that much land. So I guess you can accept that part. If it was a, mostly landmass, I would say like, yeah, where's it coming from? But it does start over the vapor ocean, so I guess that makes sense.
Do you think that vapor ocean is more of an ocean with really thick water but a lot of vapor on top of it, or the whole thing's vapor?
Because there is some science precedent to this. I think I mentioned somewhere in the notes, but I'll bring it up now. Okay. And that would be Jupiter. So Jupiter has clouds that are so thick that you might as well be the ocean. So you literally can float or swim through these clouds because they're just so damn thick. I mean, assuming you could do that at Jupiter.
Would they not sink, though? If they're that heavy, would they not sink lower? That's gravity's a thing.
Well, because there's different types of densities. So some less dense may rise up. The other ones that are heavier will go down.
Right.
But in theory, that's totally possible. Now, we can say that, that was a pretty thick ocean. That would be lower. Well, it is technically because he's on the surface. You can't get lower than the surface.
True.
So that means the vapor clouds that are down there are the thickest ones, and there's others up wherever.
Yeah.
So
you don't see how deep it is, really, do you? Properly,
right.
You don't. So You're right.
It's probably pretty damn deep. I think there's very little. In other words, the Protostar was awfully lucky because there's only so much land it looks like there, and they just happened to be able to crash land on the proper.
I think that's what Chakotay done, though. He said he had to try and put it down somewhere in a rush. You know, I think
Yeah.
whatever's happened, the ship was. We don't really properly know why the ship is there and why it's there. It escaped last time under its own power. You don't really find out why it ends up there like that, not properly, and why it's got no power. He does say that it had to vent all plasma, which you do when you go into a planet's atmosphere anyway. You see it all the time with when Voyager was landing on planets. You have to get rid of the plasma. I think it doesn't play well with atmospheres, so you vent the plasma, and then usually you have enough backup power to re-kickstart everything again. But there was nothing left in the proto drive as well, so he literally put it down. And you're right, he's lucky, man. It's almost sitting on a kind of a pendulum type thing, you know, but it's wedged in there, so it's not going anywhere. But you're right, of course, there's a bit of science behind it, mate. Yeah, definitely. And I'm curious more than anything else. It's not a nitpick. I just found the whole thing fascinating.
No,
really.
no, I think that's a good thing behind Star Trek. Just the fact that you and I think it's curious is good.
Yeah.
That's what Star Trek's about. You should be curious, and I like how they base things in at least some kind of science. Now, maybe it's not completely, of course, but they do. They base a lot of things in a base science, and then kind of tangent off from that. And
Yeah.
that's a cool thing, you know.
It is.
So it's that's not necessarily impossible. It might just be a little, far fetched, maybe because of you have to do that for a show, but it's not that unreasonable.
Yeah, it's why I way prefer Star Trek to Star Wars, because
Sure.
it's based on science, based on theory, you know. Star Wars not
I
so
think
much.
that's the reason why you and I like Battlestar Galactica, The Expanse, and the shows like that, because they do tend to make it, as realistic
More
as they
practical than
can.
Star Trek even.
Yeah, yeah,
More realistic.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, agreed, mate. That stuff all fascinated me. The kids have obviously arrived at the end of the last episode when Wesley sent them 3,000 light years. Wow. I was looking at that, right? 3,000 light years. I was like, that's far. And then I
Yeah,
looked
a
up.
little bit.
I forgot how far, for a brief moment, Voyager was from home. It was 70,000 light years. So, right, there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah.
um, we're obviously seeing a confrontation between the kids and Chakotay. He's been a bit distant and a bit aggressive a little bit. I mean, I get it. He's not really been around anyone properly. He's basically not given a flying F. He's chilling there with his cowboy hat on. Little nods to Clint Eastwood there, Gray, for sure.
Oh,
I like
yeah,
it.
no doubt.
Um,
I was waiting for maybe the background music to go like from the good, the bad, the ugly, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, like that, or something would come up.
how does it
But
go
they
again,
didn't go
Gray?
that far.
Sorry, I missed that. How does it go?
No, yeah, no, I'm not doing it again.
Uh, he did look the part, actually, to be fair. And like, yeah, he's pretty heartless at first. I get it. Adric has gone, as we, discover at
Adric.
some point. Adric, what did I call him? Adric. See, Adric
Adric.
is I'm getting mixed up because he was one of Doctor Who's assistants. That's why I always get. If you
Oh,
watch
there you
Doctor Who, you'll understand why.
Maybe they did that on purpose.
Adric, yeah. He's pretty much gone now. He had a bit of a plan to try and get Protostar at Dodge, and he never came back, basically. So the guy's poor Chakotay's on his own. I get it. A hologram is not quite the same, and she can't be on. Jamie can't be on all the time. She probably uses too much juice, so And it's Gray notes here. They do need to move ahead and hope that Chakotay gets back to his old self. He leaves the kids outside when the first ion storm comes along, which is bloody heartless. Like, because the kids are nipping at him a little bit.
I don't mind it. To me that shows good writing, because they were trying to show that he's at his lowest point. I mean, and stuff. So I get it. So I kind of like that. I knew that he wasn't gonna leave him out there forever, but that was pretty heartless. I mean, and the storm is getting like wickeder, and there's lightning all over, and they're like, and
We can't
So-
forget they're kids still at the end of the day. They're young teenagers, so while they're
Right,
tough
they
and
might-
brave and all that, they were shitting themselves a little bit when the storm was coming across. So
they might be prodigies, but they're not. They're still kids that
They're
can
still
get frightened,
youngsters.
so.
It's Hollow Janeway that manages to talk Chakotay round. He's like, "Come on, like don't be that guy. You know, let them in. They're just kids." And kind of break down his hard outer shell. And like Gray mentions here, she does mention to the kids that, you know, because he's been without his crew for 10 years, the guy's at his lowest. Like Gray mentions, you know, he's really struggling. He's had no one to really talk to. I get it. It's harsh, but I 100% get it. So they do come into the ship eventually, which is pretty good. Now, at this stage here, the plan is basically to try and get the Protostar up and running again. I'm thinking it's a lost cause. I have no clue originally how they're actually going to achieve it. But nevertheless, Chakotay does come around, and I'm just thinking to myself, what do you recall, Gray, what really gave him that proper kick to get going? Oh, do you know what it was? Was he was watching the kids attempting to get the Protostar up and running, you know, wasn't he? Just little bits of positive attitude, glass half full. I think that's what's turned him around. Do you agree?
Oh, they all right. All the kids were going at a positive angle, so he couldn't help it because there was so much of it. You know, it's kind of like when you're in an atmosphere of positivity all the time, you're gonna eventually come around. And so he had all of them, including even Hollow Janeway. So it was kind of like, you know, you got to come around, dude, at some point. And, you know, so then he starts doing that. It's just that it's like he lost his family, which is horrible, and now he has to learn that he has like a new family, and that's not an easy thing to do. And the only thing about of course, a show like this is it has to show a span of time going by like so quickly. I think even Dal referred to it as only being a day or two, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, I think it's more than a day or two from what you guys were doing.
It felt more like a day or two when you see what they were doing. Actually, yeah, you're right. Actually,
that doesn't matter. That's a nitpick.
When the kids first see Hollow Janeway, they're like, Janeway, you know, because they obviously know her, and she's like, do I know you?
Yeah.
And they're like, not yet, and they're trying to be careful with the timey-wimey stuff because you're not really allowed to talk about that. But they kind of later on explain it. Listen, this was our ship first, and we knew you very well. And they actually have heart-to-heart with Janeway throughout the episode, and she kind of believes them and trusts them, even though technically at this stage she doesn't know them yet. It's again timey-wimey. Don't think about it, people. You will have a sore head if you do.
Yeah. and Dal always has a sore head over that, which is perfect because that's an interesting writing ploy to show that we're having the same problems as Dal is, because he's just sitting there going like, oh my god, what's going on? And we're doing some of that same thing, going like, yeah, you're right, Dal.
Some people just are not designed for that, and Dal is one of these people that's really not designed for that stuff at all. They're all doing their things to get Protostar up and running and just living day to day generally. And Dal actually, one of his jobs is to go away and get some of that plasma fruit. Now, plasma fruit sounds like something that bloody The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or something, man. It sounds a bit batshit crazy bonkers. Sounds like it sounds a bit painful, plasma fruit. But he does go and try and get some of this plasma fruit, and he gets a little bit stuck as another storm comes in. I get a feeling, Gray, that there's a lot of these ion storms on this planet. And to be fair, Chakotay himself admits that this is one of the worst ones he's seen in quite a while, actually. So you're like, what's going to happen? One of Jankum's jobs actually is to do his repairing, his engineering stuff, and he was working on what I would call is a buggy outside, you know, one of these land vehicles that's the Star Trek universe had, and bear in mind the Protostar can actually replicate vehicles, but they wouldn't replicate new vehicles now. It's the amount of energy, they just don't have that to spare, and this old weathered buggy thing is outside looking absolutely like that's not going to run. But Jankum's like, because Chakotay passes him, if you remember, while Jankum's working on it, and he's like, good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
He's like, Jankum's like, yeah, I can do
it. He goes, what do you need luck for when you got accessories? And he shows his hand when it turns into a whatever it is. That was pretty funny.
A Swiss knife, basically. Yeah, he's But
we have our Scotty basically developing here.
we do. I do love Janko to bits. He's my favourite character before. I've said it once, and I'll say it many times. But this is when Chakotay says, "Listen, time to see if this vehicle's up and running." So he jumps in the vehicle and tries to get it started, and Jankum does his Jankum thing, and he's like, gets his hammer. This hand turns into hammer. And he's like, "Smash, percussive maintenance." And then Chakotay's like, "I like it."
On and on. Yeah.
Chakotay's like, "I like it. I'll take it."
Now it's his thing.
This is it. Like Scotty's thing was to say it would take 4 hours and it only really took 2 hours, and to drink a lot of whiskey. And obviously Jankum's thing is to bash the shit out of things until they work. I like it. Genius.
Hey, look, remember, there's a basis in science. We've hit things before and it started working.
That's true.
So there you go.
Oh, if it doesn't work anyway, at least it makes you feel better for a moment. As they go for Dal, there's a big beastie lurking under the clouds. Yeah, you don't properly see it, but it's basically going under the clouds and through the sand dunes that they're sitting on at the moment. That this vehicle's on at the moment,
Right.
and it seems to be feeding on the lightning, which is, I mean, this planet is batshit crazy, but fascinating, Gray. Really, really. You thought those creatures were pretty cool as well, I guess. I mean, I guess I did as well.
Yeah, they're pretty neat. They look more like electric eels, I guess, in a way.
Electric eels. Well, yeah. Well, there's more than one kind of was it more than one kind of creature, or was it just those eels that we really saw, but we didn't see them properly?
I think it was just the eels, but they look like a cross between an eel and a whale, kind of. Even though it sounds weird, but I thought they looked good. They have some imagination in making the creatures, so that's cool.
Gray, this planet, as they say, is a P for Papa class planet. I looked at this briefly, right, and it kind of makes sense. According to Memory Alpha, a Class P planet is a planet that's covered by at least 80% water ice and is capable of supporting native humanoid life. And it says, like Class O planets, Class P planets are identical to Class M planets apart from their surface composition, which makes sense. They can breathe on it just fine. There's an atmosphere. It's not too cold, not too hot. There is an atmosphere, but it also happens to be a bloody ocean at the same time. It's not quite a J-class planet, which is the living hell planet from Voyager. If you recall, remember seeing the J planet that the replica Voyager crew was made from. You really struggle to survive in that. I like seeing shit like that. See, when I see sciencey stuff more than Star Trek, Gray, I thought he was saying a B planet, but P planet. I knew you would find that interesting as well because you like the sciencey stuff as well.
Yeah, no, I was wondering what it was. I thought he was saying B too, but then when you start listening to it, it sounds like more like P, I guess.
But I have subtitles on so that I don't miss things. I don't normally like subtitles on, but if I'm doing reviews or something, I don't want to miss this, so I turned them on. And definitely P for Papa, yeah. So they're trying to get to Dal in time. They're a race against time because they think he's fallen down this big kind of cavern type thing, and I think he either has or he's made his way down there to get this plasma fruit. The vehicle is cool as hell, right? This thing is like part buggy, like think Star Trek 9 or 10, where they have the Argonauts or whatever. They're not Argonauts. That's bloody Doctor Who in the brain again, guys. Sorry, Argonauts is bad guys in Doctor Who. There's a whole thing about Doctor Who and Star Trek actually getting together at the Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con panel. Actually, that's getting me excited. This buggy is a land-based buggy from Star Trek, but it also, as it was going down the tunnel, before it hits the bottom, literally turned into like a hovercraft as well, Gray. It looked like a bit like Back to the Future 2, where the wheels come in and they turn into hovercraft. Yeah,
definitely.
Which makes sense.
It was very cool. I mean, I thought the craft was great. They did a nice job, and it makes sense.
It does,
for what you have.
You were
I thought going through the tunnels was great because when they had those creatures and stuff, it was almost like the dirt bikes, almost like a dirt bike. They're sitting there constantly just going through. They're trying to like go over stuff and avoid these guys that are just coming through the tunnels. Apparently, these creatures burrowed their own tunnels in the part of the world that was solid, and that's where they live and that's where they come in and out. So when an ion storm comes and they eat lightning, apparently, they're just like rushing out just like bats would in a cave.
Yeah.
And they're trying to drive around these stupid things because they're going out and it's like, whoa.
Well, see, they feed in
And
lightning.
you notice that the creatures aren't really mean per se, because they're not trying to eat the craft. They're doing their normal thing. They're trying to get out.
That's literally what I was
And
about
if you're
to
in
say.
their way, tough luck.
Yeah, literally I was about to say that. You would think as a person they're trying to come after you because they're getting close, and it's, you know, you're just trying to look after your survival of the fittest. But no, they're trying to just get out and eat the lightning, to be fair, because that's their thing. But no, they do find, they do catch up with Dal, and he's just standing there over Adric's dead body. Unfortunately, he's long past, and he's just a skeletal remains. And he's holding onto a device, which, I mean, there was this whole thing. It was Adric was trying to find a way to power the Protostar, and he'd actually had this container on him that had antimatter in it. Now, how he got the antimatter, I don't bloody know. They didn't tell you. I don't really care either. It kind of makes sense from all the planetary stuff and sciencey stuff that was going on, that Adric was smart enough to figure this out.
He had built a contraption which was still working.
It must have converted somehow.
Yeah,
because
and even Chakotay, I think, said later or whatever, was compressed antimatter, so he figured out how to get it and put it in this little tube or whatever.
It's I mean, bear in mind, antimatter is something that's real. I mean, I know a lot of you guys watching and listening to this will know about that already, but antimatter is something that's very real. It's just bloody hard to create and even harder to maintain, because if it touches matter, kablooey. So you have to keep it suspended with like really powerful magnets and all this stuff, and the Hadron Collider can make it, but it takes a long time. And so, you know, this is obviously in the future, this is Star Trek, so they're able to create their own antimatter through the processes that Adrika's little device has got, and store enough. Bear in mind, you only need enough to start a chain reaction kicking off. So this is part of the device he's got, which Chakotay's sad to see Adric like that, Gray, but he's also a bit hopeful again, because he sees that they're actually got a possibility of getting off the planet now, that he sees it, because he's like, he said he was right all along, you know. He didn't believe him. He actually said no to him, if you remember, like, it's a fool's errand, don't go and do that. But he obviously probably defied his captain and went and done it anyway. But it was really emotional to see.
Sure of it, so.
It was really emotional to see Adric like that, though, as you comment here. So I was a little bit sad as well, man. Like, I'm not sure why. Like, none of us really know the character Adric, but he obviously meant a lot to Chakotay. So is that possibly why it got you in the feelers?
Yeah, I think so, because I think it was, and also the fact that Dal's staring and he felt awful, you know, about it. And then when Chakotay sees it, I mean, Beltran really did a great performance, because Beltran was like, he was crying, and he was like, really, like, it all came flooding out. And I think he also maybe felt bad as well, because he didn't believe in it, you know. And yet here he goes, Adric goes out there, proves a point, and ends up dying for it, you know, and stuff. But in the end, he was successful.
He saved them all, essentially. Gave them a chance, you know, a fighting chance. They do give. Now, I didn't write this. Gray wrote this, because I don't remember writing this, but he didn't change the colour. So they do give Adrika a Viking-style funeral, which was good. It's a proper send-off in the vapor clouds.
I forgot to make his name. Sorry.
That's all right.
I thought it was great. I thought it was interesting, because that's typically what the Vikings used to do, except that they shot arrows and burned the crap out of the boat. But that's okay. But the whole thing was very, very poignant and very, very neat. So they just went ahead and just sent it out, gave him a regular funeral, which he deserved, instead of being stuck in a pile of whatever on his bones. So they were very, very appreciative and very respectful, and sent them off.
Yeah, very appropriate. They done the right thing. The kind of crazy thing here is Chakotay mentions that they can hopefully escape now, but he says the ship has to sail before it can fly, and you're like, wow, okay, this is batshit crazy, but I don't even care because it's bloody cool. And Gray says the same as well here, like, absolutely brilliant. Like, you're already engrossed in this episode, and that's just the end of the first episode. And I think I was just so excited about discussing this double-parter that I never even mentioned the episode title. Sorry. Last Flight of the Protostar Parts 1 and 2. So we're just doing them literally together as like one big episode, to be honest with you. So that essentially leaves it at the end of that first part there. It leaves it going into the second part. Not in a cliffhanger, but you're going to pick it up and find out what happens next. And you're
wanting more for sure.
Well,
you're like, oh.
Well, this is why they should have done it week by week, because we would have been left in we would have been left on the edge, But that's not Netflix's way. So, you hadn't really seen Voyager at all in that whole last episode, but you did at the start of the second part of the two-parter. And they're on the mend slowly but surely after the attack by the Illume. They're mending the ship. And Janeway's, she's getting on a bit. She's also on the mend. She's in sick bay, and the doctor's torturing her. Doing the old physio on her, stretcher and all that. Listen, I love all that stuff. People can crack my back and arms and limbs and that, no problem, man. I paid someone to do that for me, and it's a blessing. So no, the doc hasn't really had much to do here. I love Bob Picardo, but he's been so underused so far, in my opinion. It's a crying shame, really. But I'll let it slide. Janeway is making some calls, and who does she pick up the phone to, Gray? And I want your opinion as how this scene went. What was the point of even speaking to this character? Because we never really got anything from it. It was just for the sake of seeing this character, I think, that the writers put it in.
I think, what we're talking about, everybody, is Beverly Crusher makes an appearance. And we both thought that might happen, only because of the fact that Wesley was back. And I think they sort of explained, or the ship counselors kind of explained, that he got Beverly Crusher on the line to talk to Admiral Janeway because of the relationship, and that maybe she could understand a little more about what happened and the way Wesley is and everything. So it was really just more of a kind of a throwaway tribute thing, which was cool. And it was nice to see her coming on and saying, for somebody that has all kinds of time, he doesn't have time to see his mother.
That's a good point.
A little dig right there.
It was always the thing. I'm sorry to go on about this again, guys. It's always the thing that's discussed in Doctor Who when one of the companions is like, I don't want to leave my sick mother or sick relative or whatever, or my family. And he's like, we're in a time machine. I could take you back to the exact same time that I picked you up. And it's kind of like that with Wesley as well. He could go back at any point. It was nice to see it, of course it was. I just think there wasn't any need for this scene. That basically Jamie's picking up the phone to ask Crusher if she knows anything that could help her out. Like, no, she hasn't spoke to her son in ages. Like, it doesn't make... And she looked a bit weird in animation. Bear in mind, this isn't Picard Season 3. This is set a number of years before that. But she looked older in this animation than she did in Picard Season 3 for me, which was a bit weird. She had like shorter hair and it was white. Whereas you see in Picard, it was longer hair and it was only partially white. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe at that time when they made it, they didn't know enough, or I don't know. But the short hair is what threw me off right away. The voice didn't, because it sounded like her. It was Gates McFadden, but the short hair was kind of like, wait a minute, she's never had short hair before. But hey, look, women change their hair all the time, so
that's true. True.
Nothing unusual there, I guess. So. But yeah, but it was nice to see Gates McFadden come back and do a little cameo, so I don't mind.
But this is it. They can't really afford to get too many of the big guns in on a regular basis because budgets and whatnot. So no,
Yeah, but guess what? Like we had said before, doing a
no,
cameo voice over
a lot
is a
cheaper.
lot cheaper than because she can do that. She can do that anywhere. She can walk into a studio, an audio studio, anywhere where she lives, and just do the line or two, and then send it in.
True,
Simple,
true, very true.
and stuff. So that's why I always kept saying like, well, I would want to see more animated show. If you can't afford to give me live action, give me this quality of animation, and I'll be quite happy. You
True.
know.
Yeah, we would take that. Um, Drake's plan is comes to fruition a little bit more. We learn more about what he was doing. He was collecting antimatter so he could combine it with the matter, which I overthought this, Gray. I was like, what is the matter though? The matter is the deuterium that's in the center of the big storm. I think the red eye on Jupiter again. If I'm right in saying, Gray, it's basically the center of this storm that the deuterium
Yeah.
is based, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because he said that or Chakotay was saying that it had to all be sucked in by the collectors, that was the plan. So the deuterium, whatever, has to be sucked in, and the only way to get it is near the center of the storm. So yeah, so it all starts making sense now to be able to, hot start a starship.
Basically,
It's kind of funny when you think about it, but the basic premise is the same. I mean, to sit there and take something and just you got to hot start it or prime the pump to get it to work, otherwise it won't. That's all coming back to simple stuff, in a way.
it's all based in science again. When matter and antimatter hit each other, they create a massive explosion, and that's what's going to get the protostar up and running again. But they have to get the ship from where it is to the center of the storm, a good distance away. Easier said than done.
Yep.
They have to. It's perched on the kind of the top of the hill, and they're trying to move this, right. And I'm thinking, how the hell are they going to do this? They've got no power,
Yeah.
They're going to at first they try to use the kind of what would you call that, the ramp, where the cargo bay ramp to get out, and they're going to literally open that and then close it quickly to give it some kind of downwards momentum, and it does. It kind of bends forward a little bit, but it's still stuck. It won't move, which I found amusing. Dal is trying to use the bloody buggy thing to move this. Like you see the vehicles, the tugs, like on the water or pulling a plane. I mean, that's not going to work, man. You're not the weight that you've not got decent grip for one, Gray, and you're a tiny speck compared to this starship beside you. It was hilarious. No torque.
I thought it was funny. I like how the other characters are reacting to it. They're all just
they're all
going
watching.
Like,
they're all
he doesn't
watching.
want to give up. And they're just kind of looking at him like, let him do his thing. It's okay.
But that doesn't really work. There's a big rock that's literally stopping them from moving. So they kind of do their thing, get a big stick out, and they're quoting like Greek mythology lines from back in the day, and he gets the big stick and then they move this boulder out the way, and manage to get onto the ship on time. And it's now been temporarily renamed the HMS Protostar.
Yeah,
Because it goes into the gas cloud water thing, and it does float, but they have to have momentum. So this is where it kind of makes a little bit more sense to me, Gray, because large vehicles can stay on top of the water, like even stationary, right? But if, like, say, you've seen in Star Trek before, like a starship does crash in the water or something, it will stay upright for a while, but then it will eventually go under. So if they're not moving forward, it would slowly start just sinking underneath. But if it's got momentum, which it will do, they build like the jerry rig sails and stuff on there, and a rudder and two rudders actually, and they've all got their jobs to move this thing. And they've got a sail that they made out of the solar collectors to like drag it forward. It's kind of cool actually. It reminded me a little bit of, remember the solar ship from Deep Space Nine that Sisko and his son make?
Oh yeah, the really nice, cool looking one.
The Bajoran ship, that was beautiful, and they've been talking about that in actual real life science, like NASA and all that. We're discussing. Listen, it's something we can maybe do for some of our probes. The problem is it would take forever to get there, but it's free. It's free power. You just make something like that, and it'll get you from A to B. So, power of
it actually can go quite fast. The thing is, it's constantly building speed. So you start out really slow, and then it just keeps getting faster and faster, but very, very slowly. and then eventually you're going fast.
That's the same with the.
I always wondered about that because then I'm going like, well, when you reach your top whatever speed of because the photons are hitting the sail, how do you stop? I'm like,
you you turn the sail round.
yeah, but
180.
remember, it built up momentum over months and years. So this thing is traveling really fast. Just turning the sail around ain't gonna be enough.
This is why you
So
have
I'm
a.
going like,
This is why you have a limited supply of fuel. It's the same of the
right.
that engine that has, is it Xeon? That it has Xeon gas.
Ion. It's
Ion
ion
is it
propulsion.
ion gas? Xeon? Ion? No, Xeon gas. I think it's Xeon. I might be wrong.
Yeah, but they call it ion propulsion. Ion propulsion.
Yeah,
There
ion
was a
propulsion, but
satellite
it's
that
the
touched that one.
great. The gas is Xeon gas, I think.
I think so. Yeah.
And they combine that with electricity. It gives it a small bit of thrust. It's the same thing Gray described
Right.
there. It will get fast, but it takes time to get to that speed, and you need very little of it. So, no, it was based in science again. It was kind of cool. I liked it. It's a full blown ship now, not a starship, but a ship now.
Nautical type thing.
Yeah, Gray notes here, excellent writing and animation, down to even the creaking noises of the ship. That's a very good point, Gray, actually. That stuff's in there, and it didn't have to be. That's attention to detail, is it not?
Yeah. In fact, what I thought was really cool about the sound is I've heard the creaking sounds before, but and you can tell it's creaking wood. But what they did was they kind of mixed the creaking wood sound, and then they added something that made it sound a little metallic. So you got the feeling of the creaking of a boat, but it had that little metallic edge to it too. So somebody was doing a good job in the sound and the production.
Yeah.
I mean, it was great because you just hear it going and creaking and everything, and they're just like, whoa. So it all really lended to the effects. So you just kind of like, wow, imagine you're trying to like drive this freaking thing, over this ocean. And being a vapor ocean on top of that, it's like, well, keep going because otherwise we sink.
The ship is moving, and it is moving pretty well at a decent speed as well to get to where the deuterium is at the centre of the big storm ahead. And they've all got their jobs on this ship to keep it going. Dal almost crashes the ship before it even takes off. I remember that was amusing. But
you see the jagged mountains like this and go like, oh.
Yeah. But it's basically Chakotay and Gwen kind of saved the day really on that ship. Poor Dal's not having a good time of it on the ship. That wasn't what really his skill set leans towards. So yeah, there was because Dal was failing a little bit, Gray. There's a nice little heart-to-heart between Chakotay and Dal as they're getting closer to the deuterium storm. And it was a good little chat, I guess, Gray, because Chakotay basically gives him a little bit of encouragement and faith to say, listen, stick at it. You might actually do a lot better in life than you first realise.
Right.
So, and he is kind of an expert on that, considering he was stuck 70,000 light years away from home, and him and his old crew managed to get home. So if he can get through that adversary, right, then yeah, easy peasy for Dal. So we see some more of these massive eels up close and personal, which I like a little bit as well. And I think I only briefly mentioned this as well, but Chakotay, we almost lose Chakotay at one point, which because he falls into the kind of the soup stuff. They're all not attached to the hull properly, right? Gray notes here that they could be using mag boots, but they're not, because I paid attention to what's on their feet. They don't have that at all. Plus, they wouldn't fall off. They wouldn't fall off.
Why
Gray.
did they have such a close-up though?
They wouldn't fall off if
they really concentrated on the feet.
Gray, they wouldn't fall off if they had mag boots on. They wouldn't at all, because you can't. Even if you fell over, you'd fall over and probably break your back. Or, in fact, no, the boots would stop you falling back. You'd wobble.
The
and
mag
that's
boots
it,
would still be there, and you'd be somewhere else.
But can I apologise? I was slightly jumping ahead of the game, but the storm's getting bad as they're getting closer, so they do have to kind of go under back into the ship to avoid it. But then they realise there's problems with the ship as well. Some of the devices they've jerry-rigged to it, so they need to go out and fix it. And that's when Chakotay kind of takes a bit of a tumble, and Dal goes after him. But then Dal has to detach himself from the rope to try and get him.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy there. I'm going like, whoa, what's going on here?
Yeah, I thought it was a bit too dangerous, really. It was a bit too brave, really, to be honest here. I just thought it was a bit silly that they had to go back into the ship to then come out again. But I guess they realised, listen, if they don't make that repair, they're not making it to the center of the storm. Yeah. As you say here, they had no choice. They literally had to do that. And Gray notes here. This is all sailing. That he was involved in a sailing accident. And what dare I ask?
I was. This goes all the way back to high school. But I think I was a junior or senior in high school, and my friend's father had a sailboat, and we were. You don't know Florida, but basically there's a bay called Biscayne Bay, and in order for the sailboat to get out to the ocean, you had to travel across this, rather large bay. And so he was planning on going out the bay to the ocean and then turning around and coming back. So going out was gorgeous. I mean, absolutely gorgeous. And he had each one of us do a little fancy thing with the sail or something to feel like we're part of it. Then coming back, as it happens sometimes in Florida, okay, a massive thunderstorm came very quickly when we turned around and started coming back. And it took something like an hour to get out of the bay, or over an hour to get out of the bay, but it only took about 30 minutes to get back. So that'll tell you how hard the wind was blowing. But what was happening is, as we were coming back, literally, because I saw it, I'm inside the ship because my friend's father and he and one other guy that had a lot of sailing experience was on the outside during this massive storm. Think like mini hurricane, okay? And they're basically driving blind. They're only going by the compass as to where to go because you can't see anything, right? So all they had was the mainsail came down, and all they had was the jib, the little sail, and we flew on the little sail. It was so bad. So what happening is I'm looking out the little port windows. Literally, the front bow of the ship went underwater several times. Underwater, like this, just down below the water, and then pop back up again. I'm like, holy crap. And they're up there trying to steer and keep it going straight. So it was really strange when I saw this. I was thinking like, whoa, because I remember what I went through. And then to make it even scarier, just before we got close to shore, where the actual Coast Guard, the military Coast Guard, had to come out and get us. Okay, we hit coral. And if you've never heard coral scrape the hull of a ship, it scares the bejeebers out of you. It sounds like your boat is going to splinter and break up immediately.
Wow.
Now, it won't because the keel is made out of lead. So it actually sounds worse than it really is, But I'm telling you, I've never heard a sound like that.
The keel's made out of lead. Do you know how heavy lead is? Really?
Yeah, not the whole keel, but
Okay.
but a portion of it was, and that's the portion that was scraping across the coral. And now, had we been in a totally wooden boat, we probably would have splintered or whatever.
Damn.
But it was, man, I'll tell you, that was like the day I was looking death in the face. It was really, really scary.
It's a bit harrowing. I used to work in cruise ships a long time ago, and these things are designed to stay upright and be as comfortable as they possibly can. Even in the middle of storms, they've got massive stabilizers on either end. They're literal big fins that come out to counteract the sea. But this was so bad one stormy day that you literally had to tape all the bottles of booze to stop them falling off the shelves. But personally, I liked it, so it would. I really enjoyed it because when I'm trying to get to sleep, it was like being back in the crib. I just got rocked to sleep. I loved it. People were throwing up everywhere. I just remember seeing you weren't allowed outside the ship then, like you had to stay inside. And you would see, even in this stormy day, the front of the ship going under the water and back up. And this is them trying to avoid this bad weather, that's how bad it was. And I'm just like, this is batshit crazy. So I wasn't the same kind of jeopardy you were, Gray, but I think I understand where you're coming from. That is, not good at all, man. But yeah, so Jankum at one point comes away one of these one-liners that cracked me up. He said, I can't remember what it was in relation to, but he said Jankum's never been so happy to have gas. not as many one-liners in this episode from Jankum as usual,
Yeah,
but he still cracks me
that
up.
was his good one though because it made sense. He was like, "Oh God, I don't want to sail again. Just give me a motor."
Yeah,
And
it's
I
not
get
for
it
him.
because again, with what I went through, it would have. Yeah, if we had a motor, we could jet.
It wasn't for him at all. But yeah, so I I do like the fact that when Chakotay and Dal nearly go bye, the eels that are under there kind of help them back to the surface a little bit. They're the ones that help them because they're too far away, which we've seen before. I sent Gray a video or two recently about whales actually in real life because they're super intelligent animals, helping. Everyone gives the dolphins the credit, but the whales need credit as well. They get far bigger brains. Come on, so. That was cool. I forgot about that scene, but I wanted to pay special attention to it. So they do get to the centre of the storm, and they're trying to make the repairs here because if they don't get things up and running, they won't be able to get the power that they actually need. And Hollow Janeway is going to take herself offline to provide that bit of power for the Bizarre Collectors to suck in all this deuterium and get things going again. And they're able to eventually suck in all this gas, all this deuterium, the matter, where the antimatter's already in the Protostar drive, and it all goes in there and combines, and all you see is the Prodigy music goes back on, and you just see the ship disappear for a moment and then come flying right up like a rocket, which wouldn't really happen really in proper Star Trek. It doesn't work quite like that, but I don't care. It was cool as hell to see anyway. It would go more like this at an angle to get out, but it was like this. I think it was just the burst of energy. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, Greg. Maybe it was the burst of energy, because normally a starship doesn't come back to power like that. It's controlled, isn't it? You don't just go wham with the two gases and then, or the two materials, and hope for the best. But they had no choice, and it was a massive explosion of power that sends them shooting off into space. Very,
Luckily,
very
they
cool.
could shoot off. Otherwise, they could have blown up. So
yeah,
it worked okay.
Yeah. So they have power again, normal power. They have warp. They have impulse. But the proto drive, the protostar that's in the proto drive, that's kaput. And Dal says, listen, basically easy peasy. Like, we just got a ship that was like a sailing ship, turned it into an actual ship, managed to get out of the planet and escape. We just need to create a star now. Easy, man. No problem. Hold my beer. And that's what they'll probably do in the next episode as well, which we'll catch up on. So, Gray, what did you give this out of 10 and why?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I gave it a 10 out of 10 because there was really nothing wrong with the episode. You had action, you had adventure, you had sorrow, you had triumph. You know, everything was, the writing was superb, the acting, the animation. I don't know what I could ask for any more than that. It was just perfect pretty much from top to bottom.
Yeah.
So it was just, I mean, I was really happy because when you're starving for good Star Trek and you see something like that, you're just kind of like, yeah, this is what I want to see.
It makes
Let's
you
do
want
more
more
of this stuff. Yeah. You know, I'll take this any day over Starfleet Academy, which, God, I hope it doesn't happen. But it's going to happen, but I hope it doesn't.
No, there's no ifs and buts or maybes. It is happen. Unless they cancel it. I gave it 10 out of 10 as well, for the exact same reason as Gray. I don't give out 10s lightly. I really don't. I almost look for things to fail it on, and I don't do that intentionally. It's just I've got such high standards for Star Trek. It's very hard to make a perfect episode of Star Trek. I've only ever done it once before. Gray's only ever done it twice before in all reviews. But this was perfect. There was nothing wrong with it at all. One or two nitpicks, but nitpicks alone don't take scores down for me unless there's a lot of them. I just love the concept of it, the whole thing. And it's my kind of Star Trek. Story was brilliant. Castaway with a Star Trek twist, basically. So, yeah, that's the two-parter there. We will be back again halfway through the week or something with episodes 13 and 14 back-to-back. But until then, say goodbye to the people, please, Gray.
Live long and prosper, everybody. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.